Time for a little ABCs. Always be charging. Yep, we're gonna be charging the Blue Eddy while we're driving today. We are currently waiting in line for something absolutely awesome that we're gonna do on today's adventure. I cannot wait. This is about to be super cool. You might be wondering what requires an entire line and a checkpoint. Well, I'm about to show you, and I think you're gonna like this one. Okay, we had the van inspected, we are through the checkpoint, and now we are off to our adventure. And oh my goodness, it's gonna be so fun today. So I'm just gonna be quiet, and then I'll show you when we get there. I guess this is as good a time as any to say hello adventurers and welcome back to my channel. Today we are visiting the Hoover Dam. That's right, we came all this way, we went through a checkpoint, and now we are here at the Hoover Dam, and I am really excited. Now there are a few things that are different kind of right now, and because of that our tour is going to be a little bit different. In fact, I'm going to be your tour guide, and we're going to be checking out all of the amazing overlooks, the different places that you can see, and then also the interior space of the Hoover Dam Visitor Center. And this is going to be a super fun adventure, and you're coming with me. Let's go. Now before we even go down to the dam, I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about some of the cool things that have happened here at the Hoover Dam when it comes to movies, because you know I like movies. Did you know that Transformers, Into the Wild, Universal Soldier, even the Vegas Vacation actually have filmed portions of their movies right here at the Hoover Dam, the place that we're standing right now. And I think it's just really awesome to see how pop culture has been influenced by something that has such a cool historic value. And I always love that there's intermingling of those things, but right now it's kind of cool just to stand here and see the magnitude of the size of the Hoover Dam. Now on the side that we're currently at, this is actually the Lake Mead side. This was the flowing part of the Colorado that was dammed backwards and actually created a very large water source for not just the Vegas area, but for a lot of areas. A lot of people tap into this to get their drinking water. And it's also a great place for us to recreate. I have been staying at the Lake Mead recreation area, and it has been fabulous. But you can kind of see how it kind of comes down this little channel and hits the dam, and what it looks like after when we get to the other side. This is amazing, guys, and I'm really happy to be taking you on this tour today. On the Lake Mead side, you can see that there are 2 or 3 little boats out there that are actually coming down the channel, and there is a barrier that's as far as they can go. But just in case for some reason that barrier fails, there is an additional barrier also that you can see right here in front of us just before it actually gets to the dam area. Along the shoreline, you'll notice that the water is this really beautiful blue that fades into a deep blue. It is absolutely magnificent to see, and from a distance, this is one of the only water sources that I've seen in this massive space that almost has a blue-black to it. Of course, looking at the dam itself, we'll learn a little bit more when we go into the actual visitor center, but this is the back structure of what we're looking at right now. And you can see going across, that's the very area that we were actually driving across in the beginning of the video. We drove across the Hoover Dam, guys. That's super awesome. For a while, you couldn't actually do that. In fact, the last time I was in Vegas, I could not drive across it, so it deterred me from even coming out here because, I mean, if you didn't drive across, did you really even do it? Now there are a variety of different platforms just like this one where you can get some really amazing shots and views. You can take your selfies, you can kind of see how it works. But the main thing that we're going to do today is actually venture a bit closer, because that's where the magic really happens. Now right now with the state of the world, they're not doing tours the same that they normally would, and that is kind of a bummer because you do actually get to go inside of the dam during those tours. However, even without that, we can still learn a lot. We can still see some beautiful views. And I will have something that is a bonus moment at the end of this video that'll make it all worth it that we didn't get to do that, because you can actually do this part. Okay, at this particular parking area, we do have a little bit of a guide as to where we're going. We are currently up here kind of at the top part, and this is the spillway that we're looking at for the Arizona side right here in front of us. That's kind of neat, right? But as we kind of look at the map a little bit more, we're actually going to be crossing over the Hoover Dam and going to the visitor center itself. And so we have a little bit of a walk ahead of us. Here we also learned that no tax dollars, 0 tax dollars, are actually put into the inner workings of the Hoover Dam. In fact, all of the workings around this property are actually provided by the electricity that is actually generated from this site. So it is a unique space. With that said, the America the Beautiful Pass does not work as a result of that. Just saying. So if you come here and you do have your park pass, it's not good here, guys. But we're gonna get on to our little walk and see what else we can discover. We have some stairs ahead, which means we'll have some stairs coming back. Ugh. But that's okay. On this level, we also see a staircase that is actually not accessible to us, but you can actually use it for maintenance, and it is right by the spillway area. Now, this is what the spillway looks like when water is not going through it. See that big tunnel at the end? That is intimidating, to say the least. Now, this is another view of the spillway from this particular section, and you can see, again, just how low the water really is right now, but what the channel looks like. This thing is huge, and we found out some fun facts. This particular spillway has only been used one time in the entirety of the Hoover Dam, and it was in 1983. At that particular time, it was said that the Colorado was Russian and needed a place to go. This is what that looked like, and as you can see, that was a huge thunderous piling of the water over that wall. And it says here that each of the 2 spillways at the Hoover Dam can actually handle the flow of Niagara Falls. So that is a lot. Another reference photo right here, you can see that whenever it actually did use that spillway, the water was all the way up to the top of these towers. And let's look at those again now. As of right now, the water is this far below them, so quite a bit of difference there. So the question is now, where does the water all come from? Well, believe it or not, most of the water that filters into the Colorado actually comes from snowmelt in Colorado and Utah. So all those lovely places that we like to go and adventure, they get covered in snow this time of year. Yeah, when they start melting off, the river goes up just a little bit. Now, it would take a lot for it to get back to that spillway level. You would need monsoons and also that snow melt. So yeah. Behind me you can see the Arizona time. Up here is a Nevada time. So we're getting close. And just so you know, if you ever want to feel extremely small, come out here. These things are huge. And the closer that you get to them, the more massive they appear. Wow. Well guys, here we are, Nevada and Arizona. We are at the center. And here we go, it's Nevada time right here. So we have come full circle. Okay guys, we're inside, we got our tickets, and now we're gonna sit down for a 10-minute video and then I'll recap it with you guys on the backside. Now we're gonna go to a slideshow. I'm super excited. This is gonna be absolutely fabulous.
You see the cement truck, right? The big drum on the back? That's about the size of the buckets that were hanging over these guys' heads.
Okay, initially we started out over here, but we have made it across the road. We're about to go into the exhibit hall. A few facts before we start up. That video was awesome, but the slideshow, oh, definitely check out both if you have an opportunity. They're doing them as a result of not being able to do the tours, if that tells you anything. In fact, I learned that the way that they were actually able to make the Hoover Dam possible was fascinating, guys. They actually built a refrigeration system that went into the concrete to help it cure so that they could get it done faster, because initially they thought it was going to take 100 years for it to cure, and there was no way that they could do that. So yeah, definitely watch the talks. We're gonna go check out the exhibits though. Let's start out by finding a little bit more about why the Hoover Dam was built. Now, if you watch the video, you'll already know this was for flood control, but at the same time, it wasn't just so simple. Now, the faces of these guys right here say it all. Basically, farmers definitely needed some help from the government pitching in because water was so valuable, but at the same time, it was so dangerous. The floods in the area would wipe out entire areas. So they needed some kind of control, and there were a lot of different solutions, but not until the dam was actually proposed was there a valid one that would help everyone. Cycles of drought and flood like this would decimate anything in their path, and it became a problem for the American Southwest. Some areas of the Southwest turned to irrigation ditches like these to funnel water off of the river, and that worked well for moving the water from point A to point B. However, it did not help whenever the floods would come down the river. As exploration continued, there was a definite desire to be able to navigate the troublesome Colorado River. And so as people came along and started to explore more and more, they started to realize that there was definitely a need for being able to divert and make additional canals. In fact, as settling became more and more popular in this area, there were more and more people who were impacted by those crazy shifts in the weather from drought to flood. And so more and more there was a need to address this situation in the best way that they possibly could. And that's when the rumblings of the Hoover Dam began. In fact, after a lot of decimation and destruction, 7 states were arguing over how that they were going to deal with this magnificent body of water and what to do with it. And that is when Herbert Hoover had an idea. Before the dam could actually be constructed, they had to be able to divert the Colorado River itself. And that was a feat that would take up to 2 years just to be able to accomplish. In the slideshow, we learned a little bit more about this photo right here and what exactly it meant. And let me show you kind of some of the bullet points. Initially, there was a small dam that was placed both here and down here. And what this would do would allow them to bypass this entire section right here and push the water in a different direction downstream. And when they were able to do that, they were able to pump out all of the water that was in this particular area and start construction. That construction actually went 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, and employed up to 3,500 people per day. Now, along the way, a lot had to go into this because, for one, there was not the infrastructure in this particular part of the world for them to be able to transport these items like we might see now. In fact, everything had to be built basically on site. So they had to bring in all of the industries, and it was considered to be the largest government contract at that time. And again, it finished actually in 5 years instead of 7, which is amazing. But as a result, we ended up with an entire city of people moving here, which is what were the early days of Boulder City, and then also ultimately Las Vegas. This is what some of those diversion tunnels might have looked like when they had first started out. It says here that this is still damp from a flood that set work back 1 whole week. Each tunnel measured 56 feet in diameter. Can you imagine how long these would have taken and how much work this would have been? These holes in the side of the mountain became the diversion tunnels, and once they were all completed, they actually dropped a dam and actually started backlogging all of the water, which started the process for the actual Hoover Dam. Because this was such a large project, the Reclamation Service, which is now known as the Bureau of Reclamation, had 6 different companies involved. And you can actually see each and every one of them over here on this side. And each one of them had an expertise that they brought to this project that was very different. For example, some of them were experts in underwater construction. Some were experts in roadways or railroads or even concrete. They needed each and every one of these groups to work hand in hand to make this project happen. This was the largest project of its kind, and it needed to be done in a very specific way. And so bringing in all of these different groups actually worked out very well. And again, they ended up finishing ahead of schedule. In this photo right here, you can see representatives from each one of those companies as well as from the government. And the ultimate budget that they had to make all of this happen was $48,890,955, which in today's money would have been insane. Now I'm going to give you like a little bit of a spoiler alert. Not only did they come in and hit that budget, but also whenever they installed the power plant aspect of this particular site, it has not only paid for that and given that money back to the government, but also continues to make money on site today by providing electricity to over 1 million people here in the United States, which is awesome. Now, I'm not going to show you everything in the museum because I do want you to come out and check it out, but look at these. These are actually some of the materials that they used. This was one of the pour slabs from the first pour test in June 6th, 1933. And then right here we have one of the overhead cables section, and there were 10 cableways that stretched across the canyon. Look at that. They could actually carry 150 tons. Right here is where we learn a little bit more about where the workers stayed and the inception of Boulder City. Actually, Boulder City at one point in time had the largest population of any Nevada city at over 7,000. They had built the infrastructure for not only the men who worked on the dam during the Great Depression, but also their families. And so they had full-on schools, churches, and recreational facilities. It was a pretty magnificent thing to see. And you can see kind of what it might have started out as. It started out as these little row houses. 100 cottages per month were built. Now, I mentioned this happened during the Great Depression, and as people were looking for hope and coming toward the West, a lot of people found this to be a magnificent job. They were making $4 whopping per day. $4, guys. And that was considered to be super, super good money at that time. So imagine you have just lost everything that you ever had, and then you come out here and then you get handed this massively good job. It did come with risks, but at the same time, you were looking for something, and this was like your golden ticket.
Like they was thinking about slacking off. Don't worry about me, none. I ain't afraid of hard work.
In fact, this was a pay schedule for some of the different kinds of jobs. You have everything from blacksmiths, cooks, they have flunkies, miners, muckers, nippers, and even welders, and they're all paid accordingly. Now, the shovel operator is probably one of the highest ones on here, it looks like, at $1.25 per hour. Wow. But then they also had these guys. These were called the high scalers, and they had the most dramatic and dangerous job because they were actually suspended from the canyon rim and used jackhammers and dynamite. Along this wall, we can find the entire Hoover Dam timeline, starting off with John Wesley Pell making the first documented trip down the Colorado, and ultimately culminating way over here on April 1947. So we've seen it from several different angles, but how big is the Hoover Dam? That's something that, you know, it's hard to kind of get a grasp of. Can you believe that the Hoover Dam is actually 6.6 million tons? That is the same as 18 Empire State Buildings. Inside this room, we actually get to walk in and see the different pieces that would go into the particular parts of electricity. It's really, really cool, and I think that it's very fascinating to have such a large-scale thing that you can walk into, because it puts it into perspective how big this is, how it works, why it's important, things like that. So let's go look. Now, if we were seeing this inside of the dam area itself, this is actually one of 17 generators, and you can see here that each one of these generators has a lot of different moving parts, like this. Now, this table in front of us is actually pretty amazing because it discusses all of the different kinds of power that there are and how each one of them makes a difference. And then it also has a US power quiz at the end. But something that I really like is this section right here that actually talks about how your house requires power. Now, as a van person, I understand power in a very different way than I did when I was in a sticks and bricks, because I know that every little bit of power that I have counts immensely. But sometimes whenever I was in a sticks and bricks, I neglected to realize that until, you know, there was a power outage. Now in my van, I use solar power, but the Hoover Dam actually produces hydropower, which is a much different entity. Let me show you kind of what the difference is and how that they actually collect solar power though also, and how it plays into the bigger picture. The hydropower comes from the water actually flowing through those generators like the one that we just looked at, and it actually produces tons and tons and tons of power because it has lots of volume of water. However, solar cells are a little bit different. They actually are in large fields that have unobstructed views for the most part, and they can also create a very clean power. So that's another source that is very important. Now again, I'm acutely aware of how much power that I actually use based on the fact that I'm doing my van. I have 3 different power stations, one that's 700 watts, one that's 300 watts, and one that is 1,000 watts. So altogether I have 2,000 total watts of power that I can use at any given time. Now, how often do you know how much that you need in your house? Not very often. So when you start looking at things and how much that they pull, it starts making you more aware of your consumption. And I think that this display right here is perfect for that, because you can physically turn off and on things in the house to see if you're producing enough energy to sustain what it is that you're doing. Okay, we are now going to the elevator to the Overlook. Around this room, not only do we have the best views, but we also have some more signs that tell us a little bit more about the Hoover Dam. I'm gonna leave those for you guys when you come here. I think you'll love them. They're a little tidbit that just adds to the experience so much. But these views, wow, they're amazing. You can see where the power plant is down below. You can see the dam so clearly. You can see the traffic going across. It is amazing. Oh, but wait, there's more. There's an entire area out here that we can go through the door and out to an observation deck.
Run water around the turbines if necessary.
And overhead you can hear a little bit more about it. But this is definitely a sunglasses kind of moment. Woo, it's bright out here today. Okay guys, I stopped in and got myself a nice refreshing beverage, and then also my patch, which I'll show you in just a minute. But now it's time for us to head back over the dam and see what the other side looks like. I will say this, they have a very nice gift shop and then also restaurant here out at Hoover Dam, and then you can sit out on this covered patio area, which is super nice. So yeah. Ah, that's so good. That's so good. It's kind of warm today. As you can see from this side, it is amazing. You can see where the Colorado physically pushes through and then gets dumped out on the other side. And then you can see where we just were, like over here. Really, really cool, guys, really cool. The views just go on for days and days and days up here, and it is amazing. Not to mention on this side, you do have a couple of other stops where you can actually pop up into here, get a little bit closer, and get a really amazing view of the dam itself right there. Now, something you might have noticed from the other viewpoints is it is much wider at the top than it is at the bottom down there. And that was structure by design on purpose. This thing stands over 700 feet tall altogether. And for structure, this was very important as they planned this as part of the design. Now down below, that's where all of the power plant actually is. So the water actually comes through those tubes that we were talking about and fuels through this area down here. And you can actually hear it humming as we're even standing this high above. And then of course you see the lines, and as the lines go down, they go out and then they go over this ridge over here, and that is where all the electricity starts making its way onto the grid. Not too shabby for 10 bucks, right? This is an amazing place to visit, and I definitely recommend it. It is on my top list for if you come to Vegas, because this is, again, not only a place that has made it into a lot of movies, but it has a really amazing history, and it fits right in with what it is that we do here on the channel. So let's take a few last looks, and then we're gonna head to the van where we're gonna take on all of those stairs. Yay. Wow, guys, we were in for a treat, to say the least. That was awesome. We got to see the little mountain goats also, or bighorn sheep. I never know in this area which one's which, but they are spectacular, and that's something you don't get to see just every time you come out here. So very, very cool. They're grazing on the area that is actually the Spillway area, because there's no water there right now. So super cool. Dun, dun, dun. Up the stairs we go. And Dimples is just to our right after we get to the top. Now, one last fun story before I do head up to Dimples though. By going to the slideshow, you do get the behind the scenes kind of tour aspect without the tour itself. And one of the things that I did learn was that there is an emergency set of stairs in the Hoover Dam that goes up 700 some odd steps. And it is very, very like Manitou incline kind of steep. But that's there just in case, because if there is ever a major event that happens, for example, a really bad earthquake, all of the actual elevators turn off. And so you have that as your emergency exit. We are going to cross our fingers that no one ever needs that. However, they do have it just in case. I'm sitting here complaining about these steps, but those, they call them the stairway to heaven, if that tells you anything. But yeah, that was just kind of a fun fact that I wanted to share with you guys. And now I'm gonna stop putting this off and get to the van. Okay, this is my patch that I'll be adding to the patch wall that I have going on here in the van. I think this one's gonna go right about here next to Oatman and Meow Wolf. Yay! Now, just a short distance away from the actual Hoover Dam, there is a pull-off. In fact, there's two different pull-offs with two different overlooks. I have been to the one that's called the Pat Tillman Bridge Overlook before, and I highly suggest that one. But today I wanted to show you what the lakeside of Lake Mead actually looks like and why they created this amazing place. Now, keep in mind, the lake is down just a little bit, but whenever it's down like this, it still has the capability of covering the entire state of Pennsylvania and having a 1-foot lake standing on it. So it is a huge body of water. In fact, it is the largest man-made lake ever. So let's look at Lake Mead. Now, this sign right here speaks volumes about the lake level right now. If you look at this, it actually shows Rock Island, which is in front of us. So Rock Island would be this right here. And as you can see, a lot of it is exposed right now. So the lake is definitely down quite a bit, but at its peak, it is about 500 feet deep overall, which makes it huge. The same thing with this one right here. Typically Pyramid Island is sticking out of the water, but right now Pyramid Island, the little pyramid off in the distance, is actually fully outside of the water. You can see it a little bit better here, and notice that there's a huge white ring around it and all of the other land that's exposed. Well, that white is actually created from the minerals that are inside of the water, and they're pretty corrosive, so that's why they look like that. And by corrosive, I don't mean like you dip your toe in and you're going to melt. I mean that over time they build up. It's like a calcification, so the white becomes more and more predominant. In fact, they said over at the Hoover Dam during the slideshow that it is extremely aggressive toward metals specifically. So as humans we're fine, but metals, it's made them have to change a few things, and because of that, some of the parts that they initially used in the first iteration of the Hoover Dam have now been supplemented with things that are a bit more sturdy, so to speak. So yeah, that's kind of the interesting story of coming out to the overlooks. Each and every overlook has a different story, and it's fabulous to learn a little bit more, but to see the volume of water, just the volume of water in general that was created by this project is amazing. So definitely make a stop here also, because you're going to want to see it, and it more than makes up for the fact that you can't take the walking tour. It's fine, guys. We learn just as much on our own and through taking part in those little things that are featured. Now remember, guys, we are not here for a long time. We are here for a good time, and places like this give us new brain wrinkles and make it quite the interesting time. So if you've enjoyed today's video, make sure that you leave a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, and remember, guys, to come out to Las Vegas and check out not only the pop culture history at the Hoover Dam, but also the history. It's really cool. Till next time, guys, bye!